Okay, great. Well, thanks and good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. Obviously, many of you are not as well, uh, but I know you're out there and I appreciate it. I'm happy to be filling in for Callie today to talk a little bit about this process we have underway through the Fish and Wildlife Service to bring out Stream Smart. And for all of you to know very clearly, especially if they're U.S. Forest Service folks on the call, that Stream Smart is our derivation of U.S. Forest Service's stream simulation design principles, methodology, and trainings that we have been developing over many years in Maine, particularly. And Fish and Wildlife Service has been the primary partner in that for many, many years, and has across the region, the North Atlantic Appalachian region, recognized that it's a great way to get across this really important information about how to do better stream crossings in a way that respects the U.S. Forest Service's approach and yet provides an avenue for reaching different audiences. One of the problems we found over the years, having had a number of Forest Service stream sim trainings in Maine, was that we weren't always getting the folks who did a lot of stream crossing design, such as consulting engineers, to those trainings because they are quite a large commitment of 5 days. And so we were trying to come up with other ways to present that information. And that is really what we're trying to now roll out across the region with some pilot trainings this year. So we're doing train the trainer events in Virginia, New York, and Massachusetts, all meant to include folks from surrounding states, such as West Virginia and Maryland to the Virginia training, Pennsylvania to the New York training, and other New England states, and maybe New Yorkers too, to the Massachusetts training. We're trying to do as much as we can to move this effort ahead with only these three sort of pilot trainings, which we're going to continue into the fall with our first public pilot trainings. And I wanted to give you a little flavor of what those trainings are about. If you've been through Forest Service Stream Sim, you're familiar with all the concepts. It's important to think here today about us trying to reach all sorts of audiences with this information. So I wanted to give you a little flavor of these trainings by first looking at the basic overview and, sorry, let me just move on past that, some introductory information. The most important thing, though, is that the message we're trying to get across is not just great for brook trout and fish. I think the primary message almost for many audiences is really important that we get across that stream smart crossings protect roads and public safety. They are fantastic for the long-term stability and resilience of our transportation networks. Not to use too much jargon there, but it's about roads really, as well as maintaining fish and wildlife habitat. And I think it's that key overlap of goals and messages that is really important to help people understand, both from a financial standpoint and otherwise, that this is absolutely the way to go for our roads and for our streams. So here's what one example of an agenda looks like for these kind of workshops that we will be running and that we have been running. We start with a convincer, trying to make sure people understand what the value of stream smart crossings is, and that's what I'm going to show you a little bit more of today. And then we do a demonstration with a stream table, and I've built 3 stream tables for this effort. We're going to be distributing them in the region and perhaps inspiring folks to build other stream tables, because it is that stream table demonstration at the in-person trainings that is often the highlight of the trainings. People absolutely love it, to see the dynamics of a stream in action, to see undersized culverts and stream crossings and how they affect those dynamics, and then to see how stream smart crossings allow the stream to act like a stream. And then these are half-day workshops, if it's not entirely clear looking at the agenda. Another big chunk of time is spent looking at how we do assessment at these sites and to get to design. And we also delve quite a bit into regulatory requirements, mainly to try to get folks just comfortable with whatever regulations obtain in their jurisdictions, try to get people to reach out to the regulators early and talk to them through the process of what is necessary in their particular area. That's a really key part of our trainings as well. So let me go on a little bit more. So there's this introduction, the value of stream smart crossings. We talked about regulations. We get really into some details of technical guidance, but remembering that this is just a half-day workshop. It is not a 5-day stream sim. It's hard to fit in all that we want to. And so we call these trainings our phase 1 trainings. And we've also got a whole nother level we call phase 2, which is a 2-day training that involves pretty much a full day of field training to do survey on the ground, and then to integrate that information into visualization software, try to really understand the basic stream sim principles of design, from field survey to fundamental design ideas. And that is something we also hope to bring out to the region perhaps next year, if we can find the funding and capacity to do it. So sorry, back to the introductory workshops, we also really get into costs and benefits of stream smart crossings, because we believe so strongly that they have enormous benefits. And as I mentioned, the stream model. I would love to show you some of these things with little video clips, but I'm not going to. But there is this video of me running a stream table, which we have used in some online trainings, which are kind of nice. You can reach more people at once than the smaller workshop settings where we have people in person and everyone can stand around a stream model and talk about it. There are benefits to each approach, but you can see that video if you'd like by going to YouTube and looking for Stream Smart Phase 1 stream table, things like that. We'll probably pull it up. And one of the things behind our effort, which doesn't exist across the region very well now because of the level of customization that really needs to happen given a particular jurisdiction, a particular state, is a lot of the basic information can be the same. A lot of the stream sim background information, super in depth, if you're familiar with it, 1,000-page manual essentially, that's all the same. But when it gets into individual state level data, that's where things change. And so most of you are familiar with the NAACC rapid survey protocols, with which I'm very involved. We have that data in Maine as well, and we have a website hosting habitat data, such as for brook trout, as well as the barrier data, and that is a really effective way to do some various prioritizations at the state level in Maine. But one of the most compelling things for a lot of folks also is building up a database of case studies to really help people to see, put a human face on those the work that we've been doing in StreamSmart to replace crossings with better ones over the years. And so this gentleman in the lower right is the former road commissioner of a small town, rural town in Maine, who was very proud to have implemented a couple of Stream Smart crossing projects as he was retiring. And it brings tears to my eyes hearing him talk. I wish I had time to play it for you now, because his accent is a classic Maine accent. You'd appreciate it. Talking about the value of these crossings to his grandchildren, who he's teaching to fish in those streams. And those streams are loaded with brook trout in the upper Saco River Basin in Maine. So it's those kind of case studies we hope to build up in all other areas across the region to help get people tied into local communities and the benefits that they see from the fish resources and many other resources. So we have many partners. I'm embarrassed to put this up here in a way because I think we probably have other partners who should be on this page. And so if you don't see yourself represented here for our Virginia training coming up soon, this is the kind of thing we need to be sure we're doing well, getting all the partners involved who really want to be in on Stream Smart training in the region. This one, again, for Virginia specifically. And you'll note at the bottom of the page, we don't have a streamsmartvirginia.org website yet. I'd love to have one. I'd love to have a statewide organization in Virginia to host that website, to be able to provide the sort of avenue for resources to get out there in the state. And again, we're trying to get across these basic messages all the time, that we're protecting fish and wildlife habitat and roads and public safety. And our value of Stream Smart road crossing presentation is focused on really sort of building up people's understanding of why we're doing this. So we're obviously trying to avoid these kind of crazy failures for fish and wildlife, for budgets, for public safety. And we're recognizing along the way, as we got into this, I got into this initially thinking about fish, brook trout, Atlantic salmon in Maine. For instance, we talk a lot about fisheries and the value of the fisheries, in this case in Virginia, or elsewhere. A huge number of folks involved in the industry itself, but also ancillary or connected economic benefits that come along with that. We talk about the need for fish to move, because obviously it's so critical for different life stages of fish, different age classes. And of course, wherever brook trout are found, and true throughout the region, we dwell on them a bit because we think it's a great example. In this case, again, I'm focusing this particular instance on Virginia, and we talk about the existence of all this data that we have for great brook trout streams in Western Virginia, and the need to protect them and enhance them by improving connectivity. And I put together a little cartoon here from some data in Maine. Maybe some of you haven't seen this or heard about it before, but and maybe I think Mary Gallagher may be on the line today, our wonderful brook trout biologist from the state of Maine, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. She passed on this data to me about one particularly valiant adult brook trout, which moved a very long distance. Watch the fish move. You'll see my little cartoon, but this was an amazing feat, perhaps 75 miles or so of movement from this one tagged fish, just to give a sense of how much brook trout really do like to move if we let them, if we provide the kind of connectivity. But so much of what we're talking about these days is not just about fish. We're talking about the full need of ecological connectivity in our streams, our stream valleys and watersheds, because of the need, as we know, for all critters, almost all critters, to move along stream corridors, to use those waters in those areas for all sorts of reasons. And so I think it's a great selling point that it's not just about fish, it's about everything from insects, macroinvertebrates, turtles, to mammals as well. And beyond that, it's even simply what the streams need to do. And so we talk a little bit about that, and that's some of what we talk about further when we get into the stream table. This is just how a stream works to regulate the flow of water and maintain temperature and move materials. And so we work our way through this values presentation to get to the point, to some extent, major point, that the problem is barriers, stream crossing barriers. And whenever we can, we use local data. And it's a wonderful thing to have the NAC survey data now available across the many places in the region. This is a snapshot of data that I pulled from the NAC database in Western Virginia to show what some of that data looks like. And lo and behold, as we have found throughout the entire range of brook trout, the same conditions exist. There's virtually no aquatic organism passage, AOP, or connectivity at about a third of all crossings. And about a third of all crossings, we have reduced AOP, or we have barriers or partial barriers on those crossings. And maybe 22% of our crossings, roughly across the whole region, have pretty good connectivity. And that's mainly because almost all of those are bridges. The fact is, only about 3% of surveyed culverts provide full stream connectivity. And that's a painfully small number, and that is why we're doing what we're doing. I've done some statistics on this before, and maybe the average blocked stream segment is about a mile. And so if you think back to that, brook trout's trying to swim 75 miles, they're going to have a real problem if their habitat is broken up into such tiny pieces. And so we talk about how culverts block passage. You're quite familiar with this. I would focus in on the last thing here, and that is the combination, because most people don't recognize necessarily that the vast majority of the time there is a combination of barrier effects of stream crossings. And so we dwell on that a bit. I'm just giving you a snapshot today of this initial presentation. We talk about climate change and the increasing intensity and frequency of storms. And we show this video always, as grainy as it is, from the town where I live, Freeport, Maine, captured on video by a news crew, somehow told about this culvert, which seemed to be starting to overflow simply because of a little debris blockage and an intense local rainstorm. This is not a small culvert. This is an 8-foot culvert, about 90 feet long. Absolutely not stream smart. And so we get folks to dwell on that a little bit, and we dwell also on other types of failures like this one. This happens to be in Acadia National Park, which makes me think of Shenandoah National Park and whether some of these partial failures have happened over time. This silly thing is this undersized culvert is still there. The road was destroyed, got all patched up. It would have been great if the culvert were replaced, perhaps even for a similar amount of money at the time. But these kind of small failures happen all the time, and they are bad for all sorts of reasons. Clearly, they're bad for habitat when all that road fill material gets washed downstream. Absolutely. So luckily, this gets to our selling point, our major selling point. We're trying to offer solutions. Stream Smart Crossings offer those kind of solutions. And so we talk more about convincing evidence that shows us how important Stream Smart Crossings have been to various places. The state of Vermont is a great example. In Hurricane Irene, or Tropical Storm Irene, it was a devastating storm. Over 1,000 culverts and bridges were damaged or destroyed. Huge economic damage, huge disruption to many, many tens of thousands of people not having access to their homes and businesses and whatnot. And it turns out we have a great example of work that was done in the area. In Vermont, there's the Green Mountain National Forest, run by the U.S. Forest Service. And over many years previous to the storm, they had been replacing their culverts one by one, two by two, with Stream Smart or stream simulation design crossings. And it turns out they had replaced virtually all of them, and they didn't lose a single one. And that was just a wonderful, instructive example of why something so basic, such as this kind of level of design and replacement, is so important to the stability and the resilience of our road systems. So we sell that a lot. We give a lot of examples. I've done a lot of projects in Maine that serve as good examples. What we hope to do in the process of rolling out Stream Smart across the region is to make sure we have local examples from all of the states in which we work in our trainings to make sure people really get it, that this is not something that only is needed or happens in Maine. This is something that is happening and is needed throughout the entire range of the eastern brook trout. And we try to talk specifically about what Stream Smart means. These are all the characteristics of a good Stream Smart crossing, and they all meet these kind of needs that fundamentally allow the stream to act like a stream. That's our big selling point. And still today, as we're soon to put on these workshops, I'll show you a little highlight here, in May, next month, in Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, we'll be running these train-the-trainer workshops, and in the fall, likely October, we'll be running a set of pilot workshops for the public. We're still looking for some workshop coordinators, partner organizations, funding opportunities that we might be missing out on, and even some workshop presenters. So I hope that many of you might be involved in this process in some way or another. And I think we have time, probably plenty of time because I'm such a fast talker, that if you have comments and questions to add to the discussion, I would love to hear about them now.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, we have time for some